This video and all other videos on this channel are for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel and it is Friday. It feels like I've been away for a little while because of course yesterday we had Kookaburra on the show to share with us what he sees via his pitchfork wizardry. And of course on Wednesday we got the shadow of Camel. We got Uncle Camel come out, and it is really great to see that a bunch of people that have been here a while are slowly but surely realizing Uncle Camel comes from a place of love. It's by no means my most desirable traits, and I see a lot of the newer subscribers thinking, what on earth happened to that guy that's really calm and relaxed and likes to enjoy trading charts? He just comes out here and starts yelling at everyone. So I thought I would spend just a moment to talk about archetypes, okay? Archetypes and shadows, a little bit of esoteric stuff. There's a huge demand for me to talk about the esoteric a lot. And since it's Friday and we're coming off the back of an Uncle Camel vid, I thought I'd just briefly address this, right? And illustrate to you why I'm so unapologetically me. So you can go away and study this if you're interested, but I'll just give you the brief outline. Okay, there are some immature masculine archetypes, and the one that fits me the best is the precocious child. The precocious child has an insatiable appetite for learning. The precocious child manifests as the kind of kid that's always asking why, wants to know why the sky is blue and the sun is bright. But as with any archetype, okay, there are shadows to this archetype. And the shadow that corresponds to the precocious child archetype is the know-it-all trickster, okay? Now, the know-it-all trickster is a shadow, so therefore these are the traits of the personality archetype that are undesirable, okay? And most people, what they tend to do is either lock into a shadow archetype and then get stuck there and have to succumb to the limitations of that archetype, or what's worse is they tend to recognize these negative and undesirable traits in their character and in their personality and completely suppress them. But anyone that has read Jungian psychology will know that suppressing the shadow gives immense power to it and puts you at risk of, number one, not having a balanced character and personality, and number two, of having it come screaming out in a very, very undesirable and uncontrolled way much later in life. So whilst I understand me coming out here as Uncle Camel and saying things like, you don't know what you're talking about, I know everything, I know that's a completely undesirable character trait, but in the interest of not suppressing my shadow and giving power to it, I occasionally prefer to allow this thing to bleed into my work, my content, and my character, and I try my best to keep it in balance. I try my best to keep it in check, because having a balance between the shadow and the archetype is actually very important. If I was to be stuck in the know-it-all trickster all the time, then people would get very, very sick of me very, very quickly. Why are you always screaming and shouting? Why are you always trying to harm people with your words, to make yourself feel intellectually superior? These are obviously highly undesirable traits, okay? You don't want to be stuck in the shadow, but equally, you don't want to never ever draw from it, because otherwise you may lack the confidence, you may lack the belief, the self-belief and the self-worth to actually go after your goals effectively. So it is important to balance these shadows with the immature masculine archetype, and ultimately the goal is to have the shadow in balance with the immature masculine archetype, which, like I said, for me is that precocious child, because only through attaining balance between all of these can we then progress to the mature masculine archetype, which for me is the magician. And so this magician archetype is one of the four mature masculine archetypes. There's king, warrior, magician, and lover. But the magician is the knower, okay? The magician strives to find secret and hidden knowledge of all kind. And while some of this may sound very esoteric, it can indeed just be the mastery of some kind of skill or becoming a master in your craft. For me, that is trading. I strive to be the best trader that I can possibly be. And so you can see what I was talking about earlier, okay? This is the immature archetype, the precocious child. Like I said, this is a thirst for learning, striving for finding the why of everything. But there are these shadows, okay? And you have to allow some of these shadows to bleed in from time to time in order to keep a balance and to be able to mature and progress to what is ultimately the desirable fulfillment of your archetype. And of course, these also have their shadows as well. And again, it's really, really important. Like I say, I know I can be insufferable sometimes. I know a lot of people can see through it, right? A lot of people know it comes from a place of love. A lot of people find it comical that I'm sitting here going, listen up, nephew, okay, your Uncle Camel's talking. I hope you can understand, like I said earlier, I am unapologetic about this because I truly believe that it is important to balance these shadows with your archetype. The magician in his fulfillment desires to initiate other men into his knowledge so that they can become better and happier men, okay? Keep in mind, I don't need to be on YouTube, right? But I feel compelled to do this just because this is the way God made me. The magician's shadow, okay, is this manipulator, and he teases would-be initiates with the prospect of learning his secrets, but does not give them all of his knowledge. So this is something I have to be aware of so that I don't do this. This shadow withholds things from the audience in order to feed both his pride and his pocketbook. Shadow manipulators charge their seekers a ton of money with the promise that the student can become just like them, but they either don't give away the real secrets in doing that, Or especially what they don't admit is that their own success was due to X, Y, and Z factor, which wouldn't be able to be achievable for anyone else. Now, the reason I'm reading this is it's important to be aware of this, because doesn't this sound an awful lot like a lot of YouTube, okay? Don't you see an awful lot of people promising you that you can build generational wealth, that you can click their Bybit referral link and sign up and deposit and trade just like them? Don't they promise you the world, but ultimately only attain their own pride in being, quote, a great trader and a great influencer, and they certainly benefit their pocketbooks with all those exchange referral links? And you see this all over YouTube, that people are going to build generational wealth, people are going to be able to trade, but they hold back a bunch of knowledge, right? They're not real traders. They don't call their positions out ahead of time. They don't show where their stop losses are. They don't risk their reputation by publicly showing every one of their trades. And moreover, I see this a lot with some of the people that were really early to the space, okay? They're probably holding hundreds of millions or billions in crypto, whether it's Bitcoin that they bought at $1 or $10 or some altcoin pumps that they caught through ICO type deals in 2017. And then you see them trading with, quote, size. They're trading with 100K or $1 million, but as a percentage of their net worth, okay, this is completely play money. This is money they would use to light a cigar with. And again, this whole kind of manipulator shadow comes out all across YouTube, where people are promising you the world, and really they're just feeding their pride in their pocketbook. One of the main reasons I wanted to start this channel was because I was sick of looking at traders that I could see clearly were not traders. I was sick of being told by people on YouTube after the fact that they made a bunch of money, but yet they never ever show you when they get stopped out. They never show you even where their invalidation for their trade setup is. And an internet has an army of shadow manipulators where everywhere you look, hucksters are promising you secrets to whether it's betting women, losing weight, making money online, but only if you buy their $200 ebook, right? And I think the cat is out the bag now. People have realized that their $200 ebook is how they make the bulk of their wealth, which is why they don't show all of their trades. It's why they don't show where their stop loss levels are. It's why they don't call their trades out ahead of time. And it's most importantly because of their pride getting in the way, because they live in this shadow without having a balance in their archetypal personality traits. They don't have the ability to hold their hands up and tell you when they're wrong. So I guess my point here that I'm trying to make is, first of all, for the ones of you that have been following me for a long time and have seen a bunch of Uncle Camel and find it funny and understand that it comes from a place of love and it comes from a place of authenticity, and that sometimes I wake up on the wrong side of the bread, right? Don't act like you never go to work in a grump, okay? Sometimes, especially if you're going to post daily content, you're going to be in a different mood to how you were yesterday. But again, as always, it comes from a place of love. It comes from me remaining true to my shadow. By not suppressing the shadow, by allowing this thing to bleed through and put it on stage for everyone to see, I am able to understand both my limitations and my strengths and strive to achieve a balance between all of them. I know if you're a new subscriber, you think, what is this emotional baby yelling and screaming at me? But I'm afraid it's probably going to keep happening, okay? So yes, I understand those traits are not desirable, but again, it's about keeping balance. If you want to find out more about this, if you want to, as a man, figure out which of these immature masculine archetypes and shadows you are stuck in and how to achieve the balance between them and how to progress towards your worthy ideal, I highly recommend searching in Google or YouTube for something like immature masculine archetypes, and then you can work towards those. Interestingly enough, I was looking for feminine archetypes and there's hardly any work on that, which I thought was quite interesting. But the conclusion I came to from there is that men have to create value for themselves, whereas women are born with inherent value, so perhaps are less incentivized to do that kind of work. But it's also highly recommended to learn this stuff because it will enable you to spot people who are trapped in their shadows of their personality. Once you understand this kind of thing and you have a holistic overview of it, you can see when people have a balanced personality versus when perhaps if you ever met someone that's a bit bipolar, right? One day they're sort of happy-go-lucky and then the next day they seem to be a totally different person, okay? That is because they probably don't have a great balance between their shadow and their archetypes. And what you probably will find as you study this more is you immediately, as you're reading the archetypes, start to think, oh, that sounds a lot like my uncle, or oh, that sounds a lot like my cousin. Oh, that's why my friend behaves that way every once in a while and really confuses me. So highly recommended to check out archetypes. Again, I understand that you don't like the know-it-all trickster that shines through once in a while, and I'll do my best to keep it balanced. But again, it is about allowing these things to come into your life and be balanced, otherwise you give excessive power to them. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, of course, yesterday Kookaburra came on and showed us some pitchfork wizardry, and I saw an awful lot of people that were making comments along the lines of, he just keeps readjusting the pitchfork to fit his bias, or this can't be valid because of X, Y, and Z. And so I wanted to give you a quick tip to make you a better trader. Okay, if you don't really understand something and you're watching YouTube, it doesn't have to be my channel, any other YouTube video, anytime you're studying or looking at things on Twitter, if you see something you don't understand, you should get in the habit of going to Google that thing and reading up about it for 20 minutes, because the more you acquire these little pockets of knowledge, the better of an investor and a trader you're going to be. And I saw a lot of people that were making statements as if they were facts, when clearly they didn't even understand how a pitchfork works or what it's designed to do. So if that is you, before commenting, it might be beneficial to go and learn about pitchforks, right? Go and figure out exactly what they are. And for the people that were saying you can't just readjust it, well, you can, okay? All TA is essentially worthless. And I wanted to really focus on this for a minute because I've said it a bunch of times before. TA is worthless and our egos get in the way because it's particularly as new traders, we want to pretend like we can develop a skill, which is reading charts and drawing lines on charts and adding indicators. And if you put a bunch of moving averages and fib levels and trend lines and indicators and whatever else on a chart and then show it to some normie that's never invested in anything and never looked at a chart before, it completely overwhelms them. They have no idea what they're looking at. And so it's very easy to allow our egos to be massaged by this and say to ourselves, yes, I've become a technical analyst, right? I know how to trade. But the reality is, okay, TA is completely worthless. And I prove this all the time on the channel by all I do is draw a trend line. Now, do you really think that this trend line drawing takes skill? This trend line is just a line, right? I could probably train my dog to draw a trend line on a chart, right? It means nothing. The cycles, I just count days. And newsflash, if you decide you want to add a momentum oscillator like the RSI, okay, well, great. That just requires 2 or 3 clicks. We have to be honest with ourselves. TA is it's not a skill set. We could teach anyone TA in 15 or 20 minutes, okay? So why then, as a technical trader that only pays attention to the charts, am I saying what I'm saying? Does it not seem like a complete paradox that I am telling you TA is worthless, yet all I ever focus on is the TA? And the answer for this, okay, is the lines on the chart simply give me an area on the chart to manage the risk around. And it is risk management that is the difference between traders that make money and not. It doesn't matter how fancy or flashy or how simple your TA is. The TA alone is worthless. And you can see this in the comments often as well, because you'll see newer people that come into the space and they often say the same comment. And that comment is, great Camel, so it can go up or it can go down, right? And that's right. It can go up and it can go down because TA is worthless. It's not a future prediction tool. Anyone that's been here for a while knows that. But what it can do is give me an area on the chart to say, okay, if we cross the line, then we can enter a buy. And we can put a stop below this piece of market structure, and then we can draw a line in the sand or a line on the chart and use that as an exit signal and say, that is an area on the chart for me to manage the risk around. But it is the risk management that is a discipline, okay? That is what is important in trading. So people saying you just keep readjusting the pitchfork to fit a bias. Well, what we do is readjust the pitchfork to find the level the market seems to be respecting. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you will have seen me do this. I originally had this trend line here, and then we broke down and started respecting a new level. And I don't like to move the trend lines, right? I was open about that. I said I don't like to cheat them, but we found a low, and this is what we're holding now. Okay, so I can either just say, well, I don't want to move it because TA means something, or I can accept it's just a line on the chart to manage the risk around and the rest is kind of irrelevant. I can also get you to go and do an experiment to prove what I am saying is correct, okay? If you start with a blank chart, something like this, doesn't matter what asset it is, okay? Find yourself a blank chart like this, grab your trend line tool and close your eyes and just draw random lines on the chart, okay? And what you will find is even with your eyes closed and randomly drawn lines, price will interact and respect with your with your randomly drawn lines. That's how worthless TA is, okay? You can draw these lines at random, and what you will find is when you extend them out, price often respects those lines, okay? So again, it's important to stay focused. It's important not to be making comments if we're uneducated. It's more important, in fact, to go away and Google these things. A lot of people seem to use me as Google, I notice. They write in the comments, hey, Camel, can you explain asset price deflation? Right? Well, I can, and I'm happy to, but is it not better that you go away and Google it? Is it not better that you go on Investopedia and learn the kind of things associated with it? Can you not get more out of it if you go and spend a few hours researching and looking at prior examples? I also see people write in the comments, hey Camel, like, can the dollar move up with Bitcoin? Well, anyone can figure that out by going to a Bitcoin chart and overlaying the dollar and then scrolling back and looking at what happens over the prior 15 years. Anyone can do that. So you don't need to ask me in the comments. Instead, I'm simply suggesting you maybe get into the habit, if you want to be a good trader and a better investor, of anytime you hear anything that you don't understand, go away and figure it out. If you're watching a video and someone's talking about reverse repos and you don't know what that is, then pause the video and perhaps go and Google reverse repos, spend half an hour, or write it down in a notepad somewhere. And then when you devote some time to study, go and learn what all these terms mean, go and understand what they imply for the wider markets. That is how you improve. And you can't just hang out in people's comment sections saying, well, we're just readjusting the pitchfork, when, I hate to break it to you, right? And this is coming from a technical trader, like I said, but TA is completely worthless. These lines can be drawn anywhere, and if you give 50 different traders the same chart, they'll all draw different lines and use different indicators. They've all got different approaches. And the only ones that will make money are the ones that know how to manage risk. So I saw an awful lot of people saying, well, why did he use this high, or why did he anchor it from there, or why is he breaking his own rules, right? Well, sometimes when the market speaks, you've got to take a different approach, or you can stay, dogmatic to your rule set, and then suddenly you've got no area on the chart to manage the risk around. So that's all it really is. But I saw an awful lot of people saying they got a problem with this and moving the pitchfork around and breaking the rules or whatever. But from time to time, right, we look for cycle lows to show up inside the expected window. I look for 60-day cycles for Bitcoin. And what have we got here? I've got a cycle inversion of about 30 days. I've got another cycle inversion of 30 days. And then we're assuming this is a half cycle low and about to be a 60-day cycle low. But no one really had a problem with me saying, well, I'm just going to label this, right? Somewhere back here, there's a 42-day cycle low. Yeah, that one right there, 43 days, okay? No one seemed to have a problem with me saying, well, 43 days cycle low, right? But occasionally, it's just better to look and say, is that the lowest low? Did it look like a new cycle begun thereafter? Yes. Well, what am I going to do then? Count this as the cycle low, or just have it in some random place? No. We listen to the market, we do our best, and ultimately we manage the risk. And again, I just politely ask that if you're in the comments saying, well, what about this? What about that? Google is probably a better answer than me. Putting your own time and research into figuring this stuff out will certainly make you better at this game, because ultimately most people won't do it. So a very quick and easy way to get an advantage over everyone else is to actually put in the work. Today's going to be a long-winded video, it feels like. My voice is already tired. I don't know how many tangents we've been on, but we'll try to get into some pristine alpha from here on out, okay? El Salvador is working on the first Bitcoin bank. They're saying you can deposit Bitcoin at the Bitcoin bank, borrow fiat, and buy property. So that's pretty crazy, right? And it ultimately means that you can borrow a debasing asset against an asset that can't be debased, and presumably over time, if Bitcoin continues to be adopted and it doesn't get hacked, then what we could probably see is essentially you'd be able to get everything for essentially free by borrowing a debasing asset against pristine hard money. Sounds nice on paper, right? It sounds like a good idea, and will certainly be very, very big if this can continue over the next decade and a half. But at the moment, the volatility seems like it might be a little bit of a problem. I guess with a long-term outlook, not too bad. I do wonder if this is going to become a trend that continues to continue. I also threw this out there a little while ago and said, look, we saw an inversion for the NASDAQ, and then we got this big rip-roaring rally. Could we see the same for Bitcoin? And I updated this as of yesterday. We did indeed get that inversion, but since then, we're kind of grinding, right? We didn't explode out like we did in the NASDAQ. Now, I saw a bunch of people saying, does this mean you're putting a normal right translated cycle on the table? To be honest, I didn't even notice that. I just copy and pasted a fractal and slapped it over the top. I still have a bias that Bitcoin will not really follow the yellow fractal, but will instead kind of push up and then top a lot earlier. But of course, we'll see, right? We'll take it one day at a time. As ever, it can go up and it can go down. The TA is worthless. We just try and stay on the right side of the trade. So far, though, lacking the power that we saw from the NASDAQ, but it is moving in the right direction. So, wholly speaking, not too bad. This man right here, okay, Garrett Soloway, is now shorting from 68k Bitcoin. So he has gotten this thing wrong. He's been shorting the whole way up, and a lot of people are giving him a lot of jip for this. But in the interest of being completely objective, okay, if we focus on this red trend line here, which I've been making the case is the trend line, we need to get above that red trend line for the final repair, and then the only thing in the way is the prior all-time high from back here, about 73k. So therefore, a break above that 73k level would indeed be confirmation of a true resumption of the primary uptrend. And whilst a lot of people are very quick to say, well, his reputation is not very good and his hit rate is not very good and he was adding to his shorts the whole way up and all this kind of stuff, now people are very quick to say, well, he's got to be wrong here as well. But like I said, if we're being really, really honest, okay, a short at resistance here, you can have a tight stop just above and then look for a pushback down to the bottom of the channel. I don't actually think there's anything wrong with that trade setup as a thesis. Now, it's not for me. I don't really have any interest in shorting Bitcoin here. But if you were going to, the short could look something like this in theory. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It is still my bias that we're going to break out. And therefore, I want to remain long and strong. Even if we get a kind of pullback from here into a cycle low, I would still be thinking what comes thereafter is a breakout. But I see a whole heap of people still clowning on this guy and being mean to him, and maybe, you know, he'll be wrong again. But also, if we were to reject here and move back down towards the bottom of the channel, would that really be super irrational, super illogical? Would that really be something that we couldn't have possibly seen coming? Or would it just be, well, okay, we moved into resistance and rejected once more? Because I don't really think there's anything wrong with that setup. With that said, I do actually much prefer this setup from Tony the Bull. I've been covering this for a long time. Ever since Tony posted it, I've been talking about it every weekend at the Weekend's Deep Dive. This is the schematic I want you to focus on here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 with a throw under, and then breakout, retest, and resumption with a throw over. We've already had all of this play out. 1, 2, 3, 4 with a throw under. We're now back above, telling us to keep open to something like this, a throw over, and then that for me would be me thinking I'm out of the market. Now, what's really interesting about this is whilst it looks increasingly likely that we're not going to have a left translated cycle this cycle, and that I was probably wrong about that, unless of course that remains the high and it was left translated, it looks to me like on a balance of probabilities we're not going to be left translated here anymore. But if this thing is to complete something like this, okay, notice that still puts us right around mid to ever so slightly right translated, which again, it's not about being right or wrong, it's about staying on the right side. If we are going to do something like this, okay, then the implications are we've got about a 2-year bear market, maybe slightly less than 2 years like I'd originally anticipated, but we're still probably not going to be finding a low until the end of 2026. And I think it's pretty obvious right now that no one really thinks left translated is even on the table. And I'm even getting to the point where I don't think an early top is either. It's starting to look a lot more like, particularly if we keep ranging from here, then we're probably going to see a much later than I expected top. But I do think now that we've kind of gotten to the point where we've worn everyone out of thinking there's ever going to be an earlier than expected top and everything is just going to be operating the way it always did, I see an awful lot of people saying, told you so, told you it was the exact same as every other time, told you we're going to top in October 2025. This to me does seem like it might catch a bunch of people out and then kind of slowly walk it down over 2 years. I don't know, time will tell. But so far, data is data, okay? And we are holding the structure. The only missing component is a violent push to the upside, something like this. And that would give us about 150k. I also don't think many people believe that can happen. And therefore, I kind of lean on that as an idea that there is a big wall of worry to climb. And a lot of people will probably be quite upset if we do this. And to the people that say that's impossible, Camel, you're being unrealistic. Well, here's my thoughts on Bitcoin reaching a 3 trillion market cap, which would give us 155k, right around this level. And it could happen in as little as 86 days because Nvidia took 114 days to go from 1 trillion to 3.27 trillion, okay? That's all it took. Apple went from about 2 trillion to about 3 trillion in just 58 days. And with Bitcoin sitting at just 1.3 trillion at the moment, okay, if we average the two above, that would give us about 86 days. And remember, Bitcoin can move faster than almost anything when it gets going. It takes just a matter of weeks to see Bitcoin double. And keep in mind, we've got a circulating supply of 19.77 million coins, of which about 70% are held by long-term holders, about 3 million coins are lost, and about 1 million coins are held or lost by Satoshi. So a 130% rally from here would put Bitcoin at 3 trillion market cap or 155k. Again, would kind of fit like this, right? Wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. This whole move would probably take just 12 weeks. And so I continue to make the case that is it really unreasonable to say this could happen in as little as 86 days? I think if we do get a true breakout after a 9-month consolidation, 9-month consolidation, if we get a true breakout from here, I don't see why we couldn't do that personally. It doesn't seem unreasonable to me. Bitcoin loves to do Bitcoin things. Let's see, right? Let's keep open to it and we'll keep open to everything else as always. Henrik Zerberg here says that we've got a minimum of 60% rally coming for Bitcoin, and that's because we've got the RSI breaking out, okay, like it did in prior occurrences that we saw Bitcoin do Bitcoin things. We've got the MACD about to cross bullish, again, synonymous with seeing big pumps for Bitcoin. And we've got the RVGI down the bottom in a bullish crossover, again, synonymous with seeing Bitcoin push. 60% rally would put us above 100k, okay? And again, typically speaking, it doesn't take as long as you think it might. And if we want to keep it even simpler still, okay, have a look at what the Bitcoin chart looks like. This is the Bitcoin monthly candle, okay? Does this not look to you like we've got a swing and a bottom in the making and we're about to be broken out of here? That's what it looks like just by my eyeball. Okay, right around the all-time highs. We've spent a very long time consolidating this move. I actually think we're probably ready, right? I've been guilty of being too bullish in here. I've been guilty of being too bullish in pretty much all of this consolidation. But I think now is probably a reasonable time to continue to be bullish. For me to flip bearish here, I'd really need to see this thing roll over to new lows. Then I'd be thinking, okay, we've got real problems. But remember, it will only take one more monthly candle up here, okay? And things are going to start to look like an undeniable bottom. It's going to be obvious to everyone, and people are going to chase and push this move to see what they can get out of the market. So very, very interesting times at the moment. For now, we stopped right where we were expecting to stop. You know, I was talking about on Wednesday, not hot knife in this. It seemed unrealistic to me that this is what was going to be coming next. But I do think when we zoom out, it won't look too far from that. Be interesting to see if we chop and pop here from the cycle low. That would be something that would be obviously not exactly per my yellow squiggle, but that would be a pretty Bitcoin thing to do, right? Something like this, chop in here and then go. For now though, we haven't really deviated away from the yellow squiggle, so I continue to stand with this posture. I continue to look and expect to add another position somewhere out of here. I am noticing the crypto related stocks, by the way, are starting to fire off. Some of the ones that were really damaged are starting to make true repairs. So that's very, very encouraging. We got a bunch of those positions on, and I'm still looking to add more positions in the level 3 members section. But as ever, I'm just taking my time, not FOMOing. I'm allowing initial trades to move into profit so they can finance risk on additional trades. As always, gold continues to tear off, and we are currently on something like day 7. So if this is going to left translate, we should be left translated by Tuesday or Wednesday next week, meaning the top for gold should be Tuesday or Wednesday next week, and then that weekly cycle low should be in focus. So as ever, we'll take it one day at a time. We are playing this in the members section by some miners instead of spot. So positions in case this thing does indeed just rip straight up to 3K or something. I don't think that's likely. I think probably we're going to get that left translation down into a weekly cycle low, and then I think it's time for that rip to 3K gold plus. And it's out of that weekly cycle low with a rip that I would expect to see silver actually break out above 50 bucks as well. Pretty wild times into the end of the year if my expectations continue to play out. And the stock market is still holding its third and final angle, okay? So all the while we're above, happy days, long and strong. But the moment we start to break down from here, I think it's going to be time to manage risk and manage risk very, very fast. Same is true in NASDAQ and Dow Jones, okay? Still pushing up. So all the while we're above, then we'll keep pushing the longs. It's completely reasonable to remain long, start to break down, and you're going to see Camel get very nervous and twitchy very quickly. I still think there's scope to see the VIX push down to make a new low below these prior lows. And if we can get that by the end of the month, then I think we've got a pretty nice trade for the VIX coming out of there. Just taking a quick look at the yields because we haven't checked in on them for a while. Is that the top, right? Are we going to see the rollover? Maybe. I think it's a little bit too early to say right now. The dollar looks like it's absolutely found a bottom. What's worrying to me about this is it's looking an awful lot like that. Okay, so if we're going to roll over, we better do it pretty soon for the Dixie. Otherwise, that whole asset price deflation, okay, a huge dollar, stock market's breaking down from third angles, that all becomes a very, very, very real possibility for me. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for understanding and being supportive of my shadow and my authenticity and being unapologetically me. I really couldn't do this if I had to come out and put a brave face on every day. I just want to be me. I just want to do me. So thank you for supporting me. Thank you for not taking what I say too seriously as well. I think a lot of people have figured out by now that even when I'm being Uncle Camel, I still love you guys. I still want to help people. And I still want people to manage risk. I still want people to understand the difference between someone that really can trade and somebody that is just trying to sell you exchange referral links or shill you altcoins to dump on you. But you seem to understand that, so I really appreciate that. Otherwise, have a fantastic weekend, right? Manage the risk, be aware of the levels. Please do play around with your charts, right? Draw some lines blindfolded or get your wife to just draw random lines on the chart and then have a look and see how often the market respects these arbitrary lines. Weekend deep dive and members video tomorrow as always. Other than that, I hope you're doing well in life. Have a fantastic weekend. And until next time, take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.